Carlo wants Carlos. This is Chelsea saying we'll take Tevez if he leaves Manchester City. And this is a twist to the story. Mail on Sunday, Tevez begs Sir Alex to take him back. Can you make any sense of the Carlos Tevez situation? Last week he wanted to go back, according to his owner, agent, whatever you like to call Jurabnic, but to Argentina. Now he's linked with all sorts of clubs in England.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I've given up trying to interpret it. I mean, I don't know. I've no idea what he's going to do. You still can't rule out Spain, can you? With any Argentine player. But I mean, the latest story is that he's going to go to Manchester United. Well, you know, I just simply don't believe that one. Can football have gone that mad? I don't think so.
I mean, Fergie wouldn't take him back, would he? This is the Mail on Sunday story about Bob Cass. Have been approached, says Bob, with a sensational offer to buy Carlos Tevez back from their neighbour City.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I can believe that.
Contact was made this week by a party closely connected with striker Tevez. Ferguson was made aware of the approach, which was neither at City's behest nor with the knowledge, but sources close to Old Trafford indicate there was absolutely no chance for the player going back to Old Trafford. But I mean, the fact that people,
given the byline, I think the source must be very close to Old Trafford.
Yes, but you know, considering what we were told last week, to actually say take me back to Manchester United just is a contradiction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a quiet weekend, you know.
But is Tevez and his people taking the mickey out of City with this?
Yes, I do think so. I think his performances for Manchester City since he joined them have been an absolute credit, not just to him, but to the profession, but to professional footballers generally. If every footballer gave what Tevez has given every 90 minutes he's been on the field for Man City, I think the game would be a better place. I think sulking and having arguments with Mancini don't matter. That's absolutely fine. It's the supporters and the televiewers pay for what he does in 90 minutes. Absolutely great. But everything that's happened off the field has been revolting. And
I know a couple of players at City who are in, just to back up Paddy, who are kind of in awe of what Tevez, the way Tevez trains, the way he works, everything he does. I mean, he's an example, apparently. Where I disagree with Paddy is we're getting back to this idea of football as a kind of Wild West. And I think that if City, the way City behaved, it became clear what City were about when they sacked Mark Hughes. I'm sorry to keep harping back to that, but I think that was a kind of a line in the sand as in the way that we viewed Manchester City, and where they went from a team that people were wanting to do well to suddenly we're saying, well, they're the same as, the new owners are the same as a lot of, you know, the Glazers, etc., you know, or Abramovich. I think once a club does that, then who are they to preach loyalty to players? If they can end a manager's contract, they can end players' contracts in mid-contract. Why shouldn't a player be allowed to say, sorry, I don't fancy this anymore, I'm off? What's the difference?
But then do we get into a situation where you could have players signing contracts and saying after 6 months of a contract, okay.
Yeah, but that's what they do anyway. So, I mean, the contracts don't... We know that contracts don't really mean anything. They're pieces of paper. I mean, if a player wants to go, he'll go. And quite frankly, I mean, I feel sorry for the fans in this, as we all do. But if the clubs want to act ruthlessly towards their employees...
Look, we're back with Fergie's headline.
Yeah, absolutely. Why shouldn't the employees act ruthlessly towards the club?
But
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, but that's exactly, and that's why I think that the Premier League, I mean, if we had an effective FA, we could address this question to it. But the Premier League is the only organisation with any power. So that's why I think it's vital that the Premier League establishes some discipline, because what we have seen this season, it's been a marvellous season for the Premier League in terms of the football. We have the promoted clubs
not in terms of the quality
playing well. I mean,
the openness of it.
The openness, the entertainment, the competitive. We've criticised it for being not competitive enough, so we must lavishly praise it for this season. And I think there's been some marvellous matches. And while the defending's not been great, you look at the Spanish defending. We're better than the Spanish. So absolutely, technically, I don't think we can complain. All we can do is applaud the Premier League this season. Everything that's gone wrong has gone wrong through ignorant owners, and
greedy players.
And, well, I'm not even sure.
Influence of agents.
Influence of agents on players. Now, yeah, I don't know whether Rooney or Paul Stretford was to blame for the Manchester United debacle, which destabilised, which turned us off the beauty of football for several weeks. I don't know if Kia Joorabchian or Carlos Tevez is to blame for this pantomime, which is turning us off football when we should be discussing the beauty of it. But all of these people are polluting the game, and it needs...
Do they care? They don't.
They don't care, but it's up to the people in charge of the game. We don't expect... If people are in the business to be an agent, to make money, it's not really their responsibility.
Don't you see
it's the responsibility of the people who run the league to police it, to drive them out.
My point's a slightly wider employment point, and shouldn't there be some sort of reciprocal thing here, that if clubs don't treat their employees with respect, why should their employees react with respect?
But wringing your hands and pleading with people to show responsibility isn't going to work in this society.
No, I'm not wringing my hands. I don't particularly care. All I'm saying is I don't blame Tevez and I don't blame Joorabchian.
No.
Because they're just out
the game
for what
invites them.
Exactly. They're out for what's best for them, and they see clubs who do exactly the same, who act with total unabased self-interest, and so why shouldn't they act with it?
Who are your sympathies with, Tevez or City?
I feel my sympathies are with City. I mean, I take Ollie's point, and it's a good point about managers and the club's loyalty to them. I just think that I think there's something a little bit more complicated that we don't know about. A lot of interesting things have been written about the relationship between Joorabchian and Gary Cook, and it was Joorabchian who is Tevez's agent now, or is it? I think he prefers to be called his advisor. Who claims that he got Cook the job at City. The two men have fallen out, and clearly the statement, the statement that Tevez came out with, he said my relationship with certain executives has broken down. That
was Joorabchian.
That was someone else speaking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there is a real power battle going on there between those two individuals, and I think for the fans that is so kind of depressing that actually this player that, you know, as Paddy's rightly said, and Ollie is such a tremendous kind of competitor, that actually he's going to leave the club because of a kind of the egos of two guys who most of them wouldn't recognise in the car park. They can't work together. I think that's the real sorry. But do
you think that Tevez wants really to leave?
I think, well, the thing that puzzles me is that he says it's not about money, and I know they always say that, but if you actually look at it realistically, where else could he earn the extortionate amount of money that he earns?
250,000 a week.
You're just not going to get there anywhere. You won't get that at Chelsea. So I think there must be.
250?
Well, according to reports,
he's their highest paid player at City, so he must be
even
be on
more
a lot.
than Touré.
Well, Touré, that's what they said in their statement.
He wouldn't get that at Barcelona.
No, he wouldn't. So if it's not, if you're being tactical here, if he's really, you know, if a player was looking for more money, the answer is don't leave Manchester City, because they are the highest payers in the world. They have to be to attract players, and because they've got these resources. So I actually think there's another twist in this. And if he is, let's say, depressed, then that is another issue, because it doesn't matter how much money you earn. If someone is depressed, then they're depressed, and that's a mental illness. But we don't know that for sure, because I think, first of all, we have to get through this battle between Joorabchian and Cook that is going on, that no one can really explain.
And I think there is again another slightly wider issue here, which is the credibility of Gary Cook and Brian Marwood. And I'm not sure if City's problems will abate until that issue is tackled, because I think within the game there are increasingly question marks about their credibility as in positions of power at Manchester City, and I think probably this whole Tevez saga relates to question marks between Joorabchian and Gary Cook.
Do you mean who is in charge?
Well, not who's in charge. Just that I think a lot of people feel that Cook and Marwood are out of their depth.
I think
in the running of
some of the deals they're doing, scattergun deals done for the sake of doing deals, absurd wages to
ordinary players.
Players who are not elite players.
They have to pay those wages. I mean, I know they are obscene when you try and explain them to a teacher or a nurse, but that is, if you're Manchester City and you're trying to take a player off Barcelona, you just have to give them a lot of money. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Otherwise, why would they go?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, at times I feel a bit sorry for Cook. I mean, a little bit of insight into the things he's tried to do there, and trying to turn around the kind of ethos of the club. I mean, even little things that when you walk around Manchester City, when you walk around the stadium, it looks better for the fans. They've spruced the place up. They've got this £1 billion development that's going on around the stadium. And I quite like the way that they've tried to tap into Manchester and to try to establish the club.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of, I mean, people at the club...
tapped into Manchester by signing an Italian and getting rid of
the work
Mark
that
Hughes a few weeks after
the
he
work
said
that they've done,
he'd never do it.
No, in terms of the community, I think they have gone about it the right way.
And I'm not saying that they're the only club that do it. Obviously, they're not. But people at the club tell me that he might not be the greatest when it comes to giving interviews, talking about the club, but actually the kind of things he's tried to do with everyone at the club, from, you know, the cleaners upwards, and tried to get some sort of ethos into being part of City, because for years and years it's been obliterated by United. You know, they have been the Manchester club.
Yeah.
They have overshadowed, and he's trying to establish them. And it's not an easy job. Fighting the elite in English football, as Chelsea found out as well, and they made loads of mistakes. It's not an easy job trying to challenge that status quo. And of course, you're going to be tripped
who
up.
welcomed Uwe Rosler to the Manchester United Hall of Fame.
Terrible, awful. But I mean, I sometimes watch myself on this programme and think, God, you made some silly mistakes there. You know, you do trip over yourself, don't you? So yes, he's made some mistakes. The things he said about Shinawatra were so crass.
Yeah.
But occasionally, you know, you hear yourself back and think, why on earth did I say that? It happens, you know.
Do you think, Ollie, for the credibility of the game, I mean, we all take your point about how they sacked Hughes, but it's a mess, isn't it? You know, you've got rows behind the scenes, rumours that Tevez doesn't get on with Mancini. Does the club have to win this one for the sake of football? Because you can't have players going around saying, well, I don't like you, I'm off.
I think it probably, I think it probably does. But I mean, when you say the club has to win it, I don't know what you mean.
They should decide what the player does, basically, because he's under contract. But again, I'm going against what you said about Hughes. But you can't, to me, have players just on a whim saying, you know, my mate doesn't get on with the chief executive, so I'm off.
No, but I mean, I think, look, down the years, those things have happened. There have been personality clashes and they result in a player leaving. I don't really see why this should be any different. I mean, look, ultimately, Manchester City will decide. It's up to them. If Tevez says, Jarabshin says he would never do this, but if Tevez were to sort of say that he didn't want to play, then it's Manchester City's call. Do they keep him and let him play in the reserves, or let him sit?
If he doesn't play for Man City, he doesn't kick a ball.
Exactly.
No,
so it's up to Manchester City to do that.
If you walk out on us, we'll sue you, which is another twist to it, isn't it? That's,
well, it is, but I mean, again, going back to Paddy's comment about Sir Alex Ferguson, it'd be slightly rich of Manchester City to do that, given the way they've behaved towards previous employees. So, look, it's totally, as Paddy's saying, it's totally within their power to do that. And as it is with many clubs, when their player says he wants to leave and they don't want him to leave, they say, OK, sit in the reserves. It won't happen because money talks. So if Tevez wants to leave, he will leave in the end.
just on the pitch, City play at home to Everton tomorrow evening. If they win, they'll be top at Christmas, first time in 81 years, which is a huge little boost for them, considering what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I suppose you have to say that for all their problems and for all the kind of soap opera, and I think they should get rid of Tevez because I think he's starting to overshadow the whole kind of project. But for all the things that have gone on, if they're top by tomorrow night, it's not been a bad year. And I know they've made mistakes. I know they've said and done some daft things, but they've managed to take on, you know, some very, very powerful clubs in England, and they've not done badly. So let's give them a little bit of credit for that. On the flip side, I feel very sorry for David Moyes, whose club were finished 5 places above Manchester City the summer that they were bought by Abu Dhabi, and he's fighting an uphill battle again this season. Yeah.
Do you take City seriously now as title contenders, and the fact they'll be around for a long time as challenging?
I think you've got to. Yeah, I think you've got to. I mean, they've got too many good players. I mean, of course, that they've had some bad results, and there will be mistakes and there will be fallouts, but they've got too many good players now to ignore, and they're obviously serious. I mean, we know now that we only had to be in, as we were in Zurich, this month, to see that the power now in English football is coming from the Middle East. That's where the money is, and they've got loads of it. So yes, they're too good to ignore now.
Do you agree with that, Paddy? That City title contenders?
Yes, I do think so. I think that in the sort of medium term, the financial fair play thing is something that has to be taken into account in dampening down expectations. But yeah, in the short term, very much so.